game is an amateur game. I mean, the professional side of it, there are idols and heroes and fun to watch them play. But I mean, if it wasn't for amateur golf, there would be no golf.
You have to remember, when you play a golf course and you're out there for 4 hours or whatever, you're only hitting a ball for 15 minutes of that. So there's a lot of time to look around.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Top 100 Clubhouse podcast. I'm here with David Davis, our CEO, and Jasper Miners, the editor of the website, because we have a new ranking coming out this week. Am I right, Jasper?
Yeah, we've released quite a few over the past couple of months. Basically, from January until now, we've been doing a refresh of the major rankings on the website, and there's been this build up to the world ranking. And if you think the first few that we've released have been a bit ballsy, the world ranking's going to create some waves, but we're ready for it. So we've worked really hard on it, and the world ranking panel has been on it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how people react.
Well, so yeah, it's the big boy. It's the World Top 100. And I know David is our CEO. He also runs the world panel. David, can you just walk us through what it's like in the process of approaching a world list, particularly in one that you plan to kind of shake up and get it back into where you believe is a happy place for a list of the world list, really?
What it's like to be in a room with all those guys battling back and forth. Is that what you're asking?
Is it quite a tense environment when you're doing these lists, particularly if a world list of this importance?
Well, like anything, some people are very, very intense and take it personal, and are really behind what they're what they believe. Like I think like all of them. I mean, one of the neat things with this one is that we had the biggest group of panelists that we've ever had, and definitely the most well-traveled group. And I think that there was a couple of there was really a couple of big big things that we took into consideration, and those are things. Well, just as a couple of examples. So, look, guys, we want to strip everything of its history. So there is no history involved in it, and that's really hard to do, right? So we want to strip things of history. We want to strip exclusivity. We want to strip all that type of stuff, right? And then do our best at doing that. And it's a subjective exercise in the best case, but is that possible to do? Now, luckily, we've got a large group of guys that have completed the World Top 100, at least several lists of it. Not every single course on every list ever, although there's a couple of guys that have done that. They were not in our panel, those guys. But we've got, the best traveled group by far that we've ever included on this. But much people that are, far better, far more traveled than I am, actually. So it's an interesting group to have a debate with, because everybody's seen almost everything. There's a few guys that didn't play Augusta yet, for example, and they're hanging on and hoping that happens one day. And we'll keep our fingers crossed for them and hope that does happen. But there's a large number of people that have, and so I feel really good about every single course that we talk about. There's at least a pretty sizable group of guys, at least like 15 guys that have played every single one. And that's unique, because how often do you get to sit down with a group and say, like, everybody's talked about, everybody's seen them. I mean, even if we talk about our England Top 100, for example, which they're almost all, or our Scotland Top 100 or Ireland or GB&I, and they're almost all accessible. It's still, when do you get to sit down with a group of like 10, 15 guys that have played them all? So people can look at it and argue, and you can pick out things and you go like, oh, well, I played 5 of them and I know that one's much better than all those others. But guess what? If you didn't play, if you haven't played 80 to 100 of them, you don't know what you're talking about. No offense. You think you might, but you don't. And again, even if you've played them, it's still subjective. But if you haven't played them, it's not subjective. It's just hanging on to the one that you played and hoping that it's as high as possible, so you can say, you know what, hey, I played that one and now it's in the top 20 or something like that. So it's all fun anyways. But and for us, really, it's an exercise of, if you could do it, right? If you could play any of them and you're traveling, and especially for overseas, if I'm talking out of the point of view of an American, if you look overseas, there are so many World Top 100s that you can play and you can access. You just got to jump on a plane and basically, and you can get to them. Little advanced planning. Golf's booming all around the world at the moment. So but there's tons of places you can go, and there's courses in the list that it costs like, well, I'm not going to say it costs nothing, because that wouldn't be fair, but there are some real bargains in there, like World Top 100 courses that you could play for $100 or less. That's amazing. I mean, again, we're talking World Top 100. We're talking the top, 0.01% or something like that in the world. So it is incredible just to have an opportunity to play any of them, as far as I'm concerned, if you love golf and you love golf travel.
Out of interest, if I wanted to become a World Top 100 panelist, obviously you very much pick them from the people that you believe are the well-traveled members of the golf community, so the ones that have played the top 100 or play close to the top 100. How do you get on that panel? Is there a minimum number of golf courses you believe, or do you think there's people that have a greater architectural nous that you can trust their opinion in that section of the top 100 list?
Jasper, what do you? We talked about this a lot, but I'll let you jump in there.
Yeah, so I think just to pick up on David's, context is really important. We've got panels established all over the world. I think about our Oceania panel, and they've played the best golf courses in New Zealand repeatedly, and Australia, and they've done them numerous times. But that's a small pocket of the world. And then we've got individuals that have played the best golf courses in Europe, GB&I, and that's a major component of the world rankings. So you're looking at, say, 30 contributors from GB&I to the world. But when you get to America, even the top 100 USA, I would hazard a guess that the top 100 USA is probably the hardest ranking to get played, because every single one of those golf courses is probably very exclusive and private, and you only get in if you know a member. So the network you have to have in order to get in just to the USA top 100 is probably harder than the world top 100, for the same point that David's made. Because you've got roughly probably 28 or 30 of the GB&I courses that you can pretty much rock up and play if you're ready to pay a green fee and jump on a plane. So the reason why that's important is to just get out there is the fact that context is really important. And it's understanding where these golf courses sit with regards to tiers. And David and I have spoken about this numerous times, is that, is there a massive difference between number 28 on a list and number 29? Is there a massive difference between 87 and 88? Probably not. And you could swap them about and you probably wouldn't see much difference. But within those tiers, there is a difference between a top 10 golf course in the world and then, say, like a difference between the 76 to 100. So that tier of world top 100. And if you haven't played the really, really top tier and some in all the way down through the top 100, it's really difficult to be able to understand how good can be. And as well, I think when you get to America, the level of like the agronomy, the course presentation, the investment in the golf course, sometimes those are the things that really wow an individual, especially if you come from a place like the UK. Recently I just played Portmarnock, and I thought it was a brilliant golf course. I mean, we've got it in our world top 100. It's fallen a little bit, or a lot even, and it's still one of the greatest golf courses in the world and one of the greatest links golf courses in the world. But if you were an American golfer that was used to playing exclusive country club golf, you would show up at Portmarnock and just wonder what happened. But what I'm trying to illustrate is the fact that not that those things make a golf course better or worse, but it allows you to have a bit of context and background. So when you're looking at panelists, you're not just looking at architectural nous, but you're also looking at how deep is their playing background, how educated are they, and you do get individuals that have played like literally 100, if not 1,000 or more golf courses. But just because they've played them doesn't necessarily mean they have the ability to articulate why they think they're good or one course is better than another.
Or even remember any of the holes for that matter. And I've seen that so many times I can barely count it. But what'd you think of, what was your favorite hole? You know what? I don't know, but it was a great course. And it was the most magnificently maintained course I've ever seen. It was incredible.
My favorite line is always the one I birdied. You hear that every single time, right? What was your favorite hole? Oh, it was 17. What'd you get on it? Oh, I got 2. Fair enough.
Yeah.
No wonder you love that one, mate.
You know, there's certain things that are for me when I talk to an individual who maybe wants to be a panelist, and you try and maybe add context to it. So like if I'm talking to someone from New Zealand or from Australia, I'll ask them about Par Umu and just say, hey, how did you feel about that? Another example is like here in the UK, if you ask them like, oh, what do you think of Hoylake or the old course? You know, and a lot of the times they might say, well, it's not the flashiest course. It's maybe not, you know, the best turned out, although a lot of the work at Hoylake has really elevated that in recent years. But the ability to look at a golf course and not necessarily get like caught out by eye candy, and especially when you're a visiting golfer, especially in the States, that tells you a lot about how an individual sees golf. So it's a difficult thing to judge, and like David said, it is subjective. But with a lot of these things too, you can tell pretty quickly if an individual can articulate why they think something's better than another. And I think another telling thing is that after you've played any golf course that's really good, you know, there's only 100 spots in the World Top 100. And if you play a really good golf course and then automatically it's in the World Top 100, like chances are you need a little bit more seasoning to understand like what is the difference of greatness between really good, excellent, superb, and then perfection. So those are kind of giveaways, I think, from my point of view.
Right. Well,
at the same, James, look, I will, sorry about that. I will often ask somebody if they say, you know what, it was incredible. That was the best maintained course I've ever played, for example. And, you know, so therefore it's got to be like really high ranked. And I guess the question is, well, first of all, there's a point there. Well, maintenance, obviously that's knowledge, a little bit of knowledge. So you could have a really, really, switched on and a wonderful head greenkeeper or greenkeeping staff that really knows their stuff and they're in ideal growing conditions and et cetera, et cetera. It's a good year. And so everything's perfect, right? And you have that, I think you have that more in the UK than any place, because here in continental Europe where I live, you don't have that very, very often. Or you can throw a lot of money at it. And so, you know, maintenance has often a direct correlation of, you know what, do you have 50 greenkeepers there? Do you have 25? Do you have, 4.5 or 5 like we have over here? Or, like how much do you weight that? Where do you think, what does a course deserve that has great maintenance? Does that automatically jump ahead of every course that has worse maintenance than that, or it's like, that's pretty relative. So where does that fit and how big a role does that play in it? That's pretty important. Some of the rankings will assign a percentage there. We don't, but if I had to assign a percentage, I'd say, I don't know, what's that worth? 10%? Yeah, I'm just off the cuff. 10% I think would be an awful lot. So let's say it has a 1 out of 10 in maintenance. Well, that's probably not realistic, but let's say a 5 out of 10, right? You caught it. It's a picture of a given moment when you show up. Maybe they've had a drought, maybe whatever, maybe they have water restrictions. I've seen that in Australia. I've seen it in Southern Europe. I've seen it all over the place where you could have different things like that. Well, if you show up and the course is amazing, but the turf's not very good, like really bad, and you can tell there's a reason for it. They don't have, they're not allowed to use water at that moment, and that's a small period of time. Does that mean that they have horrendous maintenance? The maintenance is horrible, and that course should be, docked and not ranked well. I don't know. I mean, that's subjective. I don't think so. I look through the maintenance all the time, but a lot of people don't. I mean, read reviews. People review it that you think those are really well-traveled people, and you look what they write, and they'll say, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. They didn't even water the fairways. It was ridiculous. And that's the worst maintenance I've ever seen. That course should never have been ranked. It shouldn't be in the top 50 courses in, you name it. Like I can recall one guy saying that about one of the courses, I think it was Chantilly in France, making this whole big diatribe about somebody, luckily not on our panel, but making a big diatribe about how bad this was. Well, guess what? France was under severe water restrictions. They unfortunately don't have their own well. They can't use water. The course is amazing. But the guy said it shouldn't be in the French top 100, and then wrote and put himself out there to say that and take a big stand about it. Sorry. That's going on.
Another example, really David, is like Lofoten. Their growing season is so short. And sometimes you'll see the odd picture, and just to tee off something, they'll have maybe a mat for the EFT.
Yeah.
For us, I think we were the first ones to put it in the World Top 100, but it's because you could see the brilliance of it. Yeah. And you think, well, how is it possible that you would have a team mat on World Top 100 golf course? And you're right, like in the peak of summer, the peak of growing season, yeah, hopefully you wouldn't have that. But if you end up on a shoulder season, in a golf course's calendar that is probably 3 to 4 months long at the very most, and probably part of that is maybe 4 to 6 weeks of absolute prime golf. You judge it on basically its best foot forward, and you make allowances for those things. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is to say, look, actually, it's not a World Top 100 agronomy ranking. Like that's not what we do. It's golf course.
We could probably work on something like that. It'd be kind of hard because it would be reasonably high lean to the US, I think, to be fair. But maybe Australia would jump in there with some of the best turf in the world, of course. But there's some wonderful agronomy in the US for sure.
Well, it's the funding, right? So they've got way more funding to be able to have 40 greenkeepers. I played Adair a couple of weeks ago. There's a great example of a golf course in the UK that has 48 greenkeepers right now.
Yeah, it's usually perfect, right?
Yeah, absolutely is. But the thing is, you can go down to one of the links golf courses, anyone like Doonbeg or wherever. Doonbeg's a bad example because it's actually got more than normal, but they normally would carry about 11 per course, and that's for a big boy. Places like Machrihanish carry 5, and Machrihanish is still a very, very special experience on a golf course.
Yeah, and the turf it's usually in pretty good shape, and the turf is really good too.
The only time you don't want to go is when they have those flies that bury into the turf and then they start coming out. I don't know what they're called. Is it yellow jackets?
Yeah.
Sorry?
And yellow jackets, yeah. And I think the crane
flies.
Something like that, yeah.
But then you get a chance to see a lizard because they go around eating them.
Yeah. Just quick
on a lizard in Scotland. Sorry.
Jumping back quickly and a little bit in Lofoten's defense. The first tee there, the back tee of the first tee, has a platform that's built, and that's what the picture is usually of, Jasper. That back tee doesn't have, to my knowledge, it doesn't have it's on like rock face, basically. So there isn't.
They haven't got sand to grow grass in.
Like grass. There's a tee to the side. That does have grass, or maybe that one to the side is the back tee. I don't know which one is actually which, but I thought the back tee was the one that you climb up to, basically, and that's fairly spectacular. But that's the only one that I can remember from my trip there. Although they could have them at some place on every hole, that would make sense to me there, because like you said, okay, a lot of their tee boxes are on rock, in amongst rock outcroppings, but the golf course has something very unique, which is that it's very unique to that area. And, if we take golf courses and look at like Parkland courses, if you take a Parkland course and it's designed by, let's say an American architect, and it's in any place in the world, it usually looks like it's an American Parkland course, essentially. So it's really unique to go to a place like Lofoten, and I think that's one of the wonderful aspects of it, and have something that's extremely unique to a country specifically. So that's why I believe that's why the architecture is great, but it's different, and it's fitting into an environment, and in that course, you won't find anything like that anyplace else, basically.
So,
and not just the visuals around it. So the actual architecture and the course itself, and that's why it's in the World Top 100, if you ask me.
A great example is you don't go to Scotland and drink tequila. It's the unique experience within that space, and because of that golf course architecture fitting that space so well, it transforms it into something special.
Yeah.
Although I think I have heard a couple of stories about you, James, in Edinburgh on some nights out.
Jasper,
not a time or a place.
You still keep rejecting my offer.
Maybe this is a good time just to transition. So that question, I know this has come up a couple of times. So top 100, as we're bringing out these rankings and we're talking about it, there's a lot of individuals that have said, top 100 is really down on Parklands. And what's interesting about that is there's individuals that have taken one or two things out of context, and maybe some courses like the Belfry or Celtic Manor, for example, that have dropped, and they've said, use that to, say top 100 is, really denigrating Parkland golf, without actually looking at other golf courses. So, for example, I think some golf courses in the UK that are kind of going in the right direction, especially with England and GB&I. You look at the work that's been done at Blackwell, Ashridge, Hadley Wood. There's actually a lot of exciting stuff going on in Parkland. Stoke Park recently re-entered. So it's not mutually exclusive to GB&I, but I think this is something we spoke about just before we came on, was Parkland golf in the UK gets hit a little bit harder simply because of budgets, effectively. And David, you were talking about this. I mean, far better than James and I, but I mean, the absolute champions of Parkland golf are the Americans.
Yeah, absolutely no doubt about it. Going back to that conversation we were having, look, that's an opinion, but if you said to me, hey, let's go to the UK and build a golf course, the last thing that would come to my mind is the Parkland course, because I would say, well, I'd like to do something that could stand out and could be unique. And honestly, you're not, and it's fair to say this is because there's so many, you're not going to build a better Parkland course than they have in the US. You could quit while you're ahead. That's not going to happen. So that's not going to be the standout. I understand if you're in a beautiful Parkland setting and you're going to build a great Parkland course, that's fine. But if we're talking about something like the World Top 100 or England Top 100, and we're talking about a Parkland course, look, what people are doing is they're saying, okay, there's a wonderful Parkland course in the UK, everybody likes it, or in England, everybody likes it. But if you uprooted that course and you put it in the US, 9.999 out of 10, or out of 99 out of 100 times, or 99.99 out of 100 times, nobody's it won't even get noticed. I mean, there'll be plenty of Parkland courses, plenty of public access Parkland courses in the US that are way better. It's just, that's just the way it goes. Nobody does Parkland better than the Americans.
And I think you see that when you look down the rankings, it doesn't take too long for you to come up with a couple. I mean, you look at Marion, Augusta, Chicago. I mean, you could, split hairs as to what is a Parkland, et cetera, et cetera. But if we just said non-links, not Heathland, and an inland golf course, you've got courses in the top 10 in the world that would fit that description, between 11 and 20. And then even further down. So, it's a really interesting one. I think what we're trying to say at Top 100 is that it's not that we're anti-Parkland golf course. What we're saying is
Oh.
that the best examples of Parkland are probably not found in the UK. That doesn't mean that they're not great golf courses or even good golf courses. But chances are you're going to have better golf courses that are built on sand. And in the UK, that means heathland or links. That's just a fact.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, I think what's, and you know, adding to that in a little broader context, talking about our world rankings. Look, I personally think most of the rankings out there are, well, at least the ones coming out of the US, they're quite US centric. The perspective is very US centric in those rankings as well. Nothing wrong with that. You know, there are US publications that are driving those rankings. So why not? And most people aren't going to play the courses anyway. So, you know, they're ranking things that most of the readers won't ever see. You know, the thing that, one of the things that I think Top 100 has always tried to do, and I think we really are striving for that at the moment, is have the best, you know, and the fairest geographic representation we can. I always joke, I heard a guy say this a long time ago, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, I think this is like 15 years ago, or maybe more. And he said, look, let's make sure and instill some geographic affirmative action in terms of looking at the world and putting a ranking together. I am, you know, I'm super proud of our guys to look at stuff and say, you know what, let's do that. You know, let's not make this a UK centric or a US centric or that type of ranking. Let's try to pick the best we can. And of course, there's this bucket that everybody talks about, right? And where you define that bucket, I don't know what it is, but let's say that we say from 60 to 140 or something in rankings. And there's a lot of courses in that bucket that are amazing. In fact, there's courses in the top 200. They're all amazing, right? You'd you know, quit everything and go see them right away. So they're great. But you know, they're interchangeable, and people could argue one for the next for something else, and we can go into plenty of examples there. But at Top 100, we're trying to give, you know, trying to like instill this geographic affirmative action. I think that's super important, and it's a joke. The term is made up term, right? But we're just saying like, okay, listen, you know, that's a Lofoten Links. That's a perfect candidate. Right. That's to a lesser extent, that's a Valderrama. You know, that's a famous course, but it's a course that represents Spain very well. It's a wonderful course to go play. Robert Trent Jones Sr., one of his best ever designs. You know, throw Peachtree in that mix as well. In as much as that's well, 50% his at least. You know, so there's courses around the world that very much fit that. We've got a bunch in Australia. We've got a bunch in Japan. We've got a bunch in Korea, you know, at least one in Korea. We've got courses in South America that fit that, that fit that perfectly, right? And that's, to me, to our team of people doing it, that's really important.
This episode is brought to you by the Lockhart Travel Club. We believe golf is more than a game. It's a journey. A journey we've made across 34 of the world's top 100 courses last year, and now is your turn. We curate bespoke travel experiences for passionate golfers who expect nothing but the best. Membership is limited, so join us at lockharttravelclub.com.
I think that's a really good point, David, to make, is that this is truly a world top 100. And I think to what you said, you know, to speak to the point that there's a lot of individuals that have contributed towards this ranking. It's going to create waves. It's going to raise eyebrows. It's going to cause some consternation because we've really said, look, despite the fact that everybody's always said this is a top 20 in the world, we don't feel it is. We're going to put it at 50, whatever. But you've got roughly 40 courses from the US. You've got roughly 30 from the UK and Ireland. You've got roughly 10 from Oceania, so Australia, New Zealand, 6 from Asia, and I want to say roughly because, and this, maybe this is the point. The reason why I'm saying roughly is we actively have individuals on the ground playing golf courses as we speak, and we will take their contributions into account until the day that we release this ranking, which will be about 4 days from now. So if we hear something or do something, or there's a question mark that's in our mind, we will still make those changes. So Europe contributes about 5.
Jasper, just to add to what you're saying now, is that I think it's very relevant and important to let everybody know that we've been talking about this process that we're in and the changes. And one of those changes is massive because we're moving to a system that we call always up to date. Now, sure, we'll still have the ranking at the end of a period of time, but because we're online, we have the ability to make changes fairly rapidly. So if something, a new course launches and we get enough people there, and that's 6 months into to a year period, and we say, wow, that's amazing. It really fits in this bucket or the slot, let's say, or something like that. We will definitely consider that. So we have the ability, and equally the same type of thing. Let's say that a course closes for 2 years because it's going to go and be renovated completely. And so that happens all the time. You say like, I'll make one up. I'll say Yale. Yale, that's definitely, it should be in the World Top 100. Well, it's been closed for a couple of years. So no, it shouldn't. So
and that's exactly the example I was going to use. So Yale's on the contender list. I think we all think that as soon as it reopens, that it'll go straight back in. We'll look at it and see, but based on what we know it to be, like, that's a really good chance. We actually had one of our panelists at let me just see, on site at let me just find it, Casa de Campo last week. We'll be releasing an article soon about the complete overhaul and renovation that's going on there. That was typically, we had it at 88th in the world rankings. That's fallen out because it's closed. But no doubt that will be back and will be obviously a contender for the World Top 100 after the changes. But we have an article with drone shots and all the rest of it coming out. So we actually have individuals on the ground that are looking at these things, that are visiting these various places, not just playing the golf courses, but actively during construction. And what's interesting about all of that is that we've got a truly international panel, and we do take a lot of the feedback. David and I know who we'll be talking about when I say this, but we've had quite a few courses that have kind of come back into the World Top 100 that would be considered classics. And when we think about the UK and Ireland, or GB and I, these are courses that they haven't fallen out of favor, but I think maybe we've, your Walton Heath, your Hoylakes, your Woodall Spas, your Troons, your Royal West Norfolks, they're just on that, like, the contender list. They're in that next set of, like, they could be 90th in the world or they could be 110, and they just fall out of it. Machrihanish, we've already spoke of. But we've spoken extensively with our panelists, and some of the panelists that we really, really trust on the England and GB and I panels, to say, like, how are these things going? West Sussex is another really good example. Like, how are things going? What are they doing? They've been on the ground. They know what's going on. And obviously we can't be changing these things like day to day, week to week. But what we're trying to do, as David alluded to, is, at the end of a playing season, we would like to be able to say, hey, West Sussex has done amazingly well. And actually, it's a little bit better than what we've always thought it is, and we're ready to make that decision. So it's not something we take lightly. We're not flippant with it. And we are throwing out a couple of names. I mean, just looking at the list that I've got in front of me, I've got, across the world, 30 contender courses. and they come from every continent of the world. So we'll actively have panelists that are playing, looking. New South Wales is another one that was in the World Top 100. It's gone through a major renovation. We've got guys playing there this week. We're on the ground. We're playing these courses. We trust our panelists, and we're listening to them constantly. So it's an exciting thing that we're at a position where maybe twice a year we can do an update that really reflects exactly what's going on.
So, just so we know, and I know, you're not going to tell us in this podcast, are you? You're not going to really reveal any secrets, are you?
So part of that is because we would like people to be a little bit surprised. We'll release the podcast a little bit early and let you stew on it before we update the website. But there is some major movement in the World Top 100. Now, just looking at it, I think I can tell you. I'm just going to try and sort this on the old spreadsheet here.
Well,
so we've got.
Actually, if I could just jump in for a second.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Like everybody out there, if you're not signed up and registered at Top 100, if you're not signed up for the newsletter and stuff like that, that's the first thing. So please support us, sign up for the newsletter. You'll be the first ones to get the new rankings when it's launched, and that should be a no-brainer. It's very simple. It's exciting to be the first guy to get it. You can share it with your friends and stuff like that, and I already say like, hey, I got a head start, guys. I know it's going to happen. You're just going to have to wait and see, basically.
Absolutely. So, and we'll also drop it on social media. So if you can, sign up for the newsletter, follow us on social media. So X or Instagram is probably the best two channels. Obviously, subscribe to us on YouTube. This will be posted on there as well. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. We've got quite a few new courses that are debuting. So I think we've got. Let me just see. So we've got 9 new courses that go in. Some of them are re-entries. Some of them probably have been or should have been in the World Top 100 for quite some time. I think one that I was really particularly excited to see.
Already know it. Already know what it is.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Santa's speech.
So I mean that was one that was a little bit of a revelation. I think because it's probably a municipal golf course. People probably don't rate it as highly. If it was like an ultra exclusive and you could only get on if you had a mate who paid a few $100,000 to be a member and no one ever played it, like St. Andrews Beach would just be, it would automatically be in. But because you can show up and pay like £50 and play it.
So right. There's a famous story in East Lothian where Dunbar Golf Club was charging £100 and was getting 4,000 visitors a year. And one of the tour operators said, it's too cheap. No one wants to join. No one wants to come and play it. I recommend you double what it is. So they doubled it to 200. Next year, they had 9,500 visitors.
Yeah.
Exactly the point.
How do you price golf? It's completely irrelevant. It's just priced on the basis of that guy around the corner is charging that much.
I was talking to an owner of a golf course the other day in London, and I asked him the question. I said, why is golf so expensive? And he said, because you lot keep on paying. And that is a simple answer that you can get. So they keep on putting the price up, and as long as people start to still keep coming through the door, they're going to keep on doing it.
So Birkdale next year is $495.
And to be honest, yeah, and it'll be completely maxed out. People will still pay it. You think about what is it? Turnberry, I think it's 1,500 at like peak season. I'm sure you can get, if you went in December, January, you could probably get on for a lot less. But still, like, there will be people that will fill that tee sheet for 1,500 quid a year. But there are still some deals out there.
To be fair, that includes your hotel, I think, for 1,500. It includes hotel room.
There you go. And hopefully a breakfast buffet. But
it's the only way to get on the golf course, by staying. That's
the point. I mean, and it's not that different than Pebble Beach. So unless you're one of the few that can get on the singles, the first one out. But I mean, it's going to be exciting when you look at. We've got quite a few from Asia coming in.
There's an exciting newcomer from Canada. We won't say which one that is.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, sorry, I forgot about that one.
That's
So
the one.
that's what I thought you were going to go with.
I forgot. I didn't realize it was coming in. Ah,
That's
yeah,
the
no,
one I thought you were
yep.
talking about, James, for obvious reasons.
Sorry, he's been waxing lyrically about St Andrews Beach for a long time, and I completely forgot. Left my mind about his beloved.
And this is really good because it's actually the centenary of the golf course this year, so it's a bit of a romantic one. And let me just say, I removed myself from that situation. I'm a proponent of the golf course. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and when you see it, it does debut quite high. And what's interesting, when we spoke to our Canadian panel, and we spoke to a lot of the North American panel, so the Americans that have gone up to play, Canada was a really interesting one because the best golf course in Canada, so when we sent out all the surveys and we asked for all of their feedback, almost everybody had a different number one. So what's interesting about that is there's 5 golf courses that repeatedly came up. So St. George's, Jasper Park Lodge, Cabot Links, Cabot Cliffs, and Toronto. So whenever we sent out information and say which one is the best golf course, no matter what came back, number one was always different. So everybody had a different opinion on the consensus. There was no consensus number one. In the end, we were able to come to a consensus as to what the best was. But what was very interesting, interesting. What's that, sorry?
Fisticuffs. Please tell me it was fisticuffs.
Well, yeah, it was, yeah. So what was crazy though is that without fail, almost every panelist that sent back their information, they had the new entry from Canada second. And that was a really interesting one. So out of the all the individuals that we trust have seen a lot of golf in Canada and the States, and played a lot of golf on that side of the world. They all varied on what was the best course in Canada, but number 2 was always a consensus. And this is an interesting one as well. Maybe this is just a little bit of, when we have these panels, sometimes the world panel, as David was alluding to previously, they've got a very rare and hard-earned depth when it comes to playing the best in the world. But there are times, specifically with GB&I, our English panel and GB&I panel, because of them, we've put in courses that we didn't necessarily want at the very beginning, but after conversations we did, and we removed some courses based on their input. And Canada was the same. The courses that went in, I think we've got 3 from Canada at the minute. And the one that we put in was solely based on the fact that we had feedback from our panel, and not just from me. I didn't even partake in it. So although I'm a massive proponent, and I am very happy it's there because I think it deserves to be, but I reckon Ian Andrew, if he listens to the podcast, he'll be very happy as well. So we'll leave it there for now.
I'm disappointed because it's one of the few courses that I have high up on my bucket list that I've never seen. So it's nice to have one still on the bucket list.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and it's going to be this year's location, maybe, David. Is now you'll get to do because I think most of the other ones, just looking at the new entries, I think you've got them all, with the exception of the one that we're speaking of. So there you go.
I've not played Lido in the
future. So. Okay, well, yeah, it's not that far apart. Lido and then Western Canada. So.
Easy drive.
Absolutely, yeah. 30 hours later.
Winter, right? In terms of realization for people here, there's maybe about 80 people in the world that have completed a top 100 list. Am I right in saying it's around 80?
I thought it was less, but
okay.
It could be. It depends. Like, I think it probably depends which list, obviously, right? I mean,
yeah.
We have a club called the Global Golf Centurions Club. I think there's like 60 guys in that, basically, and there's a few that unfortunately have passed away. it could well be 80 if you include. Yeah, actually, I'm kind of doubting that it is that big, but it could be. It's close.
Okay, so I'm rounding up big time, and it just shows the significance of the panel that you've collected and collated, David. And to come to a reasonable understanding, this is where we think everyone's going to fall and how everything's going to sit, is quite impressive, because there must be a lot of people within that community, within that space that you talk on when you're walking around the table going, right, I want a course from Canada, and you've been like, well, I've never played it, but this is banging. And, you know, there must be a lot of toing and froing, and it must be quite an interesting process, because now it's on your bucket list. Is there any times, has anyone come up and been like, this is one I want in, and it could be a rogue thing you've never heard of? Have you ever had that experience where someone's gone, this has to be in the World Top 100 from a really important figure who's features in these clubs?
I mean, probably every single one of those guys has said that. Realistically, yes, they all have one they're trying to champion, like Jasper here with this Canadian course.
And to be honest, like it's one of those that I think, because it's just never been. But hey, look, it's if you've never been, you have to go see it. And I think maybe that's the other thing too, is that when you get down to, like, say 75 to 100, there is probably, as David said previously, there's probably 75 courses without much of a stretch that you could put in between 75 and 100. So if you look at the States, especially, once you get into that list, I'm just looking at our contender list. Wingfoot, Yeamans Hall, Wade Hampton, Ohoopee, Old Barnwell. You know, and then you go down like 10 more past that, and you think, yeah, why not? And when you look at even from GB&I, you've got West Sussex, Rye, Woodall Spa, Royal Troon, Royal West Norfolk, Walton Heath, Machrihanish, Liverpool. I mean, it's all like
world lists.
They could all realistically be in there from 80 to 100 without anyone even being able to argue.
I think one thing quickly is we were joking about it, right? Because we get probably because we get flack from people saying one thing or another. But ironically, you know, I was joking about Jasper championing a course, and there's people say that I'm championing different courses and whatever. But the reality is, I didn't vote, and Jasper didn't vote.
Yeah.
But to be fair, what we do is, if we think something's really good and should be seen, we try to get as many people down there as possible, basically, to say, like, okay, you know, look, up in Canada, there's this place who's played it, great, and if you haven't played it, please get up there if you can. I mean, that's all you can say, and you know, think it's a good chance. Sometimes you don't get enough people down in order to have something be considered, perhaps. Hopefully that's not happening, but in theory, that's possible, right? If a new course is opening and it should be really, you know, should be high on the list someplace or whatever. That doesn't matter. It could be from 100 to 200. That's still really high on the list, you know. But if it's a contender and it should be in there, ideally you sent 10 guys to see it at least, you know, and hopefully more. I mean, that's by no means a statistical, you know, statistically accepted in terms of like an answer, but it's better than nothing.
Mm.
And as the time goes on, more and more people make the effort to go to these places. Lofoten's a great example. No one really knew it existed for 20 years. It was just a word on the street that there's this cool thing up north of Norway. And now look at it. So talking about these kind of things, I want to move through a couple of things that have been raised a number of times in social media and throughout this long ranking release. And gentlemen, we're just going to rattle through these because I know that you're busy men. First one, we've been told that we're down on resorts. What do you think?
I think from my point of view, we're down on golf courses at resorts that aren't good. And I would just hold out. I think it comes from maybe the Belfry dropping off England, or maybe Celtic Manor moving down in Wales, or perhaps some of the Parkland courses in Ireland moving down as well, in favor of maybe some links courses. But if you look at the World Top 100, Tierra does very well. And if we were just saying, like, if it's a golf course at a resort, we're not interested, there's no way they would do as well as they did. So I'm going to debunk that straight away and say we love golf courses at resorts. And I think this is something that we said, James and I, after we played Streamsong. Is it resort golf or is it a golf resort? If it's a golf resort and the golf there is great, we love it. I mean, how could you not want to go to a golf resort? If it's resort golf, well, that's a different story. So yeah, it's not that we're down on resort golf. No, maybe that is. Yeah, we are down on resort golf, but we're not down on golf resorts.
What comes first? What comes first? I bet you a lot of people tell you that it's not the amenities at Bandon Dunes, it's the golf courses, right?
Yep, exactly right.
So debunked, wiped from the list. Okay, next up we have apparently we're very up on Doak.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be honest, I am a Doak fan. Any of the golf courses that I played from Tom, I've enjoyed. What's interesting though is some of his stuff does fall down in our latest ranking. So, if we were pushing Doak up just because we were fanboys, then that wouldn't happen. And some of his stuff even falls out.
I mean, to be perfectly fair, I'm a fan of Doak. I've always been a fan of his work. He's a genius. Okay, so but why wouldn't you be a fan of great golf? And if Renaissance Golf is creating great golf, they create a lot of stuff that doesn't end up in the World Top 100, and it's great golf. I mean, it's super fun. Some of it's some of it's even for resorts. Like I haven't played yet, but there's another one. The new one at Pinehurst, for example, right? That's another great course that gets rave reviews. I've not seen it, but tons of our people have. They say it's amazing. It's a great fit to the thing, but it's not in the World Top 100. So it's not like everything that a guy touches goes in the World Top 100, and he wouldn't claim that by any means. There's no chance as well. I mean, might like to think that, but there's no way. No. Great golf begins with fantastic and great land, and there aren't that many amazing, great landscapes left to create new courses on. And he's been lucky they've been very lucky to get a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can cross off the Midas touch of Doak within the top 100. Next, down on Mackenzie Ebert.
This is an interesting one. So, David, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, I am, I'm fortunate to know. I know Tom and Martin both, I think, very well, and by no means are we down on them. Quite the contrary, right? They are what I would wish for them is that they'd get more new builds. That's what I would. I mean, so there's no being down on them. If I was going to renovate a course, well, they're, so full transparency, they're renovating my home course, and we're praying that that'll come to fruition and get done, because then I'll have another top 100 course in the Netherlands that's that's entered the rankings. So no, but they're masters at what they're doing. I just, again, they've done some of the most iconic restorations in history, as far as I'm concerned. And it's just, maybe they wouldn't want to be known just for that. They'd rather have new builds 100%. And I'd love to see their new builds. The only one that I've ever played from them is Goodwood in Canada, and I absolutely loved it. I know Martin was over there. He created it. I didn't know very much about it. I thought it was fabulous, and hardly anybody gets to play it. It's very, very private, and but that bodes really well. That course, you go play it, and then you think, God, why aren't they getting opportunities to build more new courses? And again, this is not being down on, it's quite the contrary. I wish they were doing more new build courses. The thing is, if somebody's, if an architecture team is so hot and they're always asked to work on all these iconic, sacred cow golf courses and stuff like that, you have to be really careful with what you're doing on those courses. And there's always going to be people that, like the course is deciding what's going to happen ultimately every time. A great architect comes in, they make adjustments. You can go to the Hoy Lake thing. And so, people are critical and talk about that. But
or
guess what?
Go to Port Rush. And
guess what? Yeah, you can go to
Turnberry.
You can go to Turnberry. So all of those designs and stuff are done in coordination with a team of, panel of golfers. Sometimes it's an owner, like at Turnberry, for example, or whatever. They're always done in collaboration. And if a club wants to push the limits and push the edge, that's the club's choice. You don't blame an architect for that, because he's trying to do the best possible work that they want and make his client happy. And sometimes that works out perfectly, and sometimes it doesn't, unfortunately. And that's just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it. You do the best possible work that you can, and sometimes they switch architects and try it again, whatever. But we're anything, personally, for sure, in my book, anything but down on it. I'm down on the fact they're not getting more opportunities, basically. That's what I'm down on, but that's completely different.
Yeah, I would agree. It's sort of like saying, read a couple of times, like, we're not, everybody is down on Tim Love, for example. And it's like, no, we thought his work at Blackmore was really, really good. So it's a case-by-case basis, and we're not going to say that a course is great or a course is bad simply because someone's worked there. And when you look at the list, like, there's such a wide variety of individuals and styles that for anyone to simply say, you guys don't like this and you've not given its fair dues because of that, is just something that's taken out of context and that doesn't stack up with facts.
Do you think there's a similarity between this kind of conversation that we're having when people talk about the likes of, you're down on these guys, you're down on these guys, or you're up on these guys? There's a different. These guys are thinking from a football or a soccer or team sport mentality, where they're been standing and watching at a stadium, staring at the same pitch, where you guys are going round the world, playing everywhere that you can, and traveling to all the best stadiums to find the best atmosphere. But the guys who are at St. James Park or at Leeds United are always going to say, we've got the best atmosphere. Do you think there's a similarity in that kind of, because people think about sport through those lenses?
I'll answer that question. Simply from it, is that not every golf course that even the brightest minds come out. And I think this is what David's trying to say, is that there's a lot of factors that go into creating a golf course, and you can give, if you give a great golf course architect a brilliant site, chances are he will deliver you a brilliant golf course.
And carte blanche.
And that's the thing. But if you've got ownership groups, or you've got a tournament that wants to get involved, or you've got, and I think that's the other thing to keep in mind too, is that, you look at European golf design. And so European golf design creates golf courses primarily for, on the continent, the European Ryder Cups. And for the week of the Ryder Cup, it's absolutely brilliant. It delivers, and they're experts at it. And building a golf course that can be played exclusively by members, for the members, by the members, that's a completely different project than trying to build a golf course that's going to have 500,000 people on it, that's going to be televised around the world, that needs infrastructure, that needs like ticketing, that needs hospitality, that needs all of those factors in. So if you were an individual that was a multi-billionaire that wanted to host a Ryder Cup in Europe, chances are you would pick someone like European Golf Design or Mackenzie and Ebert, rather than someone like Clyde Johnson or Angela Moser or Renaissance Golf Design or Gil Hens, simply because it's not in their wheelhouse.
No.
And there's courses for courses, so that it's one of those ones where we're not saying one's better than another, but from a pure golf perspective, which our ranking is based on, there's some courses that will do better simply because of the fact that they were built not with events in mind, but with pure golf in mind.
Would
that's
you
just a reflection.
Jasper, would you say, or James, I mean, both of you, would you say that tournament golf, or high-end tournament golf, is almost the kiss of death for golf course architecture and design?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not always, but yes, because at the end of the day, you're going to have larger corridors between holes, so you can fit in extra spaces. So you're going to have larger walks from tees to greens, which instantly means your routing's less efficient. Simple things like that.
So I think that if I had to pick one thing that had the single biggest impact on our world rankings this time and looking at stuff, it would be probably tournament golf and history of tournament golf at sacred cow courses. Because once that's stripped away, what are you left with? And I'll give an example here. I don't want to go like in depth into it because we could do that over a full podcast basically. But look at Birkdale, for example. We don't need to talk specifically about it, but it fell considerably. And it's a course that if you get well-traveled people to go and look at it and compare it to, and knowing, oh, hey, that's a links course. It's famous because it's hosted the Open so many times and these great tournaments and all this type of stuff. And it's a prestigious club and it's a great course. There's no doubt about it. But it is a course. It's a links course. And when you think of links, you get a picture in your mind. But it's a links course where they've gone and started and plowed all the fairways flat. Or if they haven't, it's the flattest, most smoothest piece of land I've ever seen in my life, except for the amphitheater dunes that every green is put into. So, look, I mean, that's the crux of that. But the question is, has it always been ranked so high because it was a great tournament course and there was great tournaments that happened there and there's amazing history behind it? I'm going to say yes. And I think there's other courses. I know that there is a host of other courses that we've stripped of their almost their historic significance, tournaments, speaking from a tournament perspective, and that's had a big impact on the rankings. And that is what you have to keep in mind. If you want a ranking of the best tournament courses, that's different. Then we will have to do that.
Yeah, and I think to that point, I think you're absolutely right, David. You look at a lot of the courses that have had significant drops. Now, I mean, looking at it, there's a handful of courses, and most of them are in the top 10 that haven't moved because we were very confident with where those were. I mean, but you look at courses that have moved more than 20 spaces, and you'll have to take a look at some of these. But you've got some new build stuff. You've got some recently renovated stuff. Pinehurst 2, Ballyneal, I'm thinking of. You've got, to your point, Sacred Cows, the Royal Birkdales you've mentioned. Pebble Beach is probably going to shock a lot of people. But I think if you've gone and played Pebble Beach, I think it's almost the elephant in the room where people are saying, like, yeah, it's still an amazing golf course. It's a great experience, and it's one that you want to play because, who doesn't want to play Pebble Beach? It's that one that you just grow up with, and you're like, someday I got to do that. But when you go, you're like, I don't know. Is it top 20 in the world? And I think after you've played a lot of courses around the top 20, you kind of think, actually, maybe not. So we've put it where we think it should be, or where the World Panel thinks it should be. And that's an interesting one. I mean, you look at the other end of the scale. I mean, there's some big movers as well. And probably a lot of golf courses that most people have never been to. So DuPont is another one that moves up that we've all played. That one moves up significantly. St. Anadoc, Ardfin, Caprock, Santa Panzienza. These are all ones that most people probably haven't been to because they're not headliners, but they're cracking golf courses.
Okay, well, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of fallout in the next few days, or 4 days. Sorry, is that when it's going live?
Yeah, so we're going to release the on the back of the World Top 100 ranking. There's changes to most of the top 10s across the regions, so those will come out. And then we've also got, because of the amount of great golf in California and New York, where some of these courses are, they'd either rise or fall. Those will be released early on. So, we're going to release the pod. We'll release the region updates. So that's North America, South America, Caribbean, GB&I, continental Europe. I don't think we have anything in Africa this time around, but Middle East, Asia, Oceania, those will all get released. We'll do those. And then we'll basically release the World Top 100 and then turn off notifications for a couple of days and then see what the fallout is.
nuclear bunker. I'm going to find my space. No one knows which country I'm in.
We can set the answering machine. We're sorry, you've reached the number that's been temporarily disconnected.
I think at the end of the day, we're not saying this is definitive. It will change. Hopefully there won't be massive swings, because I think we did a bit of a hard reset. Part of that was that we haven't done a World Top 100, a proper update, for a good few years. We've had new guidance. We've got lots on the new panel. And there's been a lot of really good new golf that's come out. And I think that, combined with maybe a resurgence of appreciation for some of the classics as well, there's been, and removing like a lot of this, residue from perhaps championship golf courses historically, which goes totally against what a lot of people are saying online with regards to Top 100, that we're, pushing up classic golf courses in favor of the, at the expense of newer ones. Yeah, we've done the exact opposite. We've tried to reward golf courses on the merit of what they are.
Well, what do you think, lads? Should we call it there and get to our nuclear bunkers? Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you very much for everyone who has been listening. I hope you enjoy the release in a few days. It's going to be quite chaotic, but all for the betterment of the Top 100 integrity and the quality of what we can do for you guys. So thank you very much for listening. And if you want to get in touch, it's official Top 100 on Instagram, or you can just email me at james@top100golfcourses.com. And as we all say, play fast, lunch slow.